Hello everybody, today we're going to take a look at the voter registration shifts for the month of March. Now as always, this is not my own data, this is from Michael Prusser. You can find it all on his Twitter/X. And real quick, a lot of states do things a little bit different. Some states don't report their numbers at all, some of them do it way less frequently, some clean their voter rolls differently, some have automatic voter registration. There is some nuance here between the states, but we've got more than 25 to get through, so we're going to go pretty quick through this. We're going to start here with 2 from last month because I didn't get to them in the previous video. So first we've got New York, and this state does not update their data all the time, so we've got to take a look at it. So at the top, we've got Kamala Harris winning this state here in 2024 by 12.6%. Now this time the changes are from back in November, and we've got the Republicans gaining more than 23,000 votes. Dems are down almost 50,000. Other/independent is going to be up over 2,600. Now the total active party registration in the state is 12.4 million. Of those, the Republicans are at 2.8 million. The Dems are at almost 5.9. Other is at over 3.6. That's an advantage for the Democrats of just over 3 million. So that's a massive advantage. But let's compare where it was at before November 2022. Well, back then it was more than 3.3 million for the Dems. And back in November of 2020, it was more than 3.4. So it's a giant blue advantage here, but it is diminishing a little bit over time. Of course, the state had a big shift toward Trump in the election, so you could put however much weight you'd like on these numbers. I don't think they're everything because it doesn't really tell you how everybody's going to vote. But at the same time, I would not just dismiss it entirely either. They all cannot be legacy Democrats. Sometimes there is real movement here. Let's go to the next state. We've got Massachusetts, also from last month. And Harris won this state huge by over 25 points. The changes since November are the Republicans went down 11,500. Dems down more than 54,000. Other down more than 45,000. So as you can see, a lot of voter rolls being cleaned up post-election. In this state, other or unaffiliated by far outnumbers the 2 major political parties. But the Dems do have a significant advantage here of 875,000. That's a little bit down from after the election and down from over 1 million the Dems had after 2022. So the trajectory here again is a little bit toward the right, but overall very blue state. Next, it's going to be Pennsylvania. Here, Trump won it by 1.7, and this is the March data. So since February, Republicans are up over 1,000 here. Dems down more than 4,400. Other up 4,000. Yeah, the advantage here is shrinking for the Dems. It's down under 100,000. After the election, Dems were up 286,000. Back in 2020, they were up 685,000. Again, probably some ancestral Democrats here, but that's still going to be quite a bit of movement in just a few years. That's going to be a huge story if and when Republicans actually close that gap and flip the party registration advantage. Next, it's North Carolina, and we've got 2 of them. First, we've got Trump winning it by 3.2. Now, since last month, Republicans up 1,200, Dems dropping off 5,900. Now, these numbers are for the total party registration, not active voters. So for total party, Dems are up 30K. Now, that is clearly down from 2020, where the Dems were up 391,000. So if we go from total party registration, Michael Prusser mentions that North Carolina runs its active voter roll maintenance from January through April 15th. Any voter who did not vote over the last 2 federal elections in 22 and 24 was mailed a postcard. If that voter did not return the postcard within 30 days, they were removed from the active rolls and placed on an inactive list. 2 more no-vote federal elections and they are removed from the voter rolls. So you might think that's great, you might disagree with it, but looks like that's how North Carolina does it. So if we look just at active party registration instead of total party, here the changes are both parties dropping off huge. Republicans dropping off 50K, Dems 82K. But here the Republicans actually have the advantage of over 52,000. And that's flipped from back in the book closing of 2024. Dems were up over 100,000 there. So that's a ton of movement again in a short time. So let's keep going. We're going to try to go a little quicker through most of these states. In New Jersey, Harris won it by under 6%. The GOP here dropped off almost 38K. Dems way more than that. 87,000. Advantage for the Dems is 834,000. Back in 2022, they were up 1,068,000. So even though others still outnumbers both parties in the state, this update continues to show that there is a decline of support for the Dems. How much does it matter? We'll have to wait and find out. Next, in Florida, here Trump winning it by over 13 points. Republicans here gained 4,400. Dems dropped off more than 14,000. Huge Republican advantage here of almost 1.2 million. The Dems actually had the advantage back in 2020 where they were up over 134,000. 184,000. This has gone from a swing state to a very reliably red state at this point. The party registration data here might reflect that path. How about Louisiana? It's a red state. Trump won it by 22 points. Not a lot of change here. Republicans gained 105. Dems, though, they dropped off more than 1,900. This is a state where the Dems still have the party registration advantage. It's over 51,000. But that number is dwindling. Back in 2020, the Dems were up almost 250,000. So I would imagine that is going to flip at some point in the not too distant future. Next, New Mexico. Harris won the state by 6%. Republicans dropped off 3,900. Dems even more, 5,100. Advantage for the Dems is 141,000. In November of 2024, it was 154,900. So it's not dramatic, but it's still a steady decline here for the Dems over the past 4 years. Next, Kentucky. Trump won it huge, 30.5%. Looks like they cleaned up their voter rolls here. Republicans dropped off more than 95,000. But not to be outdone, the Dems dropped off even more, 101,000. Republicans had the advantage here of 184,000. But back in 2020, it was actually Dems that had the advantage of over 103,000. Like a lot of these states, a lot of ancestral Democrats here. But even with all the changes over the past couple of decades, the Dems still managed to go down more here. How about Nevada, a key swing state? Trump secured it by 3.1%. Here, both parties dropped off almost the same amount. The Dems just a few dozen more at almost 1,700. Other, though, is up over 8,300. Again, keep in mind about automatic voter registration. Republicans recently took the lead here in the registration advantage. They're up just 226 overall. But if you go back to 2020, Dems were up 86,700. Could this purple state be getting even redder? Only time will tell. Oklahoma, this is a super red state. Trump won it by more than 34%. Republicans gained over 3,300. Dems dropped off 773. GOP advantage 642,000. That is up from the book closing of 2024 where they were up 606,000. Next state, Delaware. This one's blue. Harris won it by 14.7. The Republicans dropped off 39. Dems dropped off a lot more, 510. But here's another state where other went up a ton, 15,700. Dems have a big advantage here, 143,000. That's just a little bit lower than November of 24, where they were up 145,000. Similarly, we've got Rhode Island, Harris winning it by 13.8. Republicans went down 113 and Dems dropped off more than 1K. Dem advantage here, 164,000. But like with a number of these states, other is clearly in the lead over the two major political parties. Let's keep it rolling. Let's do Idaho. Trump here winning it 36.5%. Big drop off here for the Republicans, 37,000. Dems dropped off way less this time, 17,600. Other is down even more than the Republicans, 42,000. In super red states and super blue states, I would actually expect the dominant party to lose more registration. It's just simply because there's a lot more of those voters to lose when you're cleaning up the rolls. Clearly in some red and blue states though, that's not necessarily the case. It's just one of many factors to consider. But the Republican advantage here is 507,000. In November of 24, it was at 496,000. So another steady increase here for the Republicans. Next, Utah. Trump won it by 21.6. Republicans up 434. Dems down 570. GOP advantage 691,000. It's up just a little bit from November of 24 where they were up 689,000. This red state could be getting a little bit bluer in the future, but according to the registration data, it's still getting a little bit redder. Next, Alaska. Trump won it here by 13.1. Republicans went down 128. Dems dropped off more than double, 282. GOP advantage, 74,500. That's up a little bit from November of 24, where they were up 72,000. So far, few, if any, bright spots here for the Dems. Let's keep going. Colorado. Harris won it by about 11%. Republicans went down, 501. Dems 4 times that, 2,200. Other is up 10,800. The Dems have an advantage here of over 100,000. That's down about 10K from November of 24, where they were up 110K. It's also very similar to where it was at in November of 2020. Next state, Wyoming. Super red Trump territory here. He won it by 45.76. And the changes from last month are Republicans went down a ton here, 12,800. Dems down 2,600. As I just said, either the state is getting a little bit bluer, or Republicans just have a lot more to lose use when they're cleaning up the rolls. This is an advantage for the red team of 180,000. Now that actually is clearly down from election day of 24 where the Republicans were up 193,000. It's also lower than back in 22, but it is definitely higher than election day of 2020. Next state, Iowa. Trump won it by 13.2. Republicans down 5,100. Dems a little under that at 4,700. GOP advantage 191K. That is up from November of 24 where the GOP was up 173,000. It's way higher than November of 2020 where they were up just 20,500. In Nebraska, we've got Trump winning it by 20.5. Republicans dropped off 341. Dems dropped off 709. Other is up 322. Republican advantage 291,900. It's up a little bit from November of 24 where they were up 286,000. Next, West Virginia, another extremely red state. Trump won it by 41.9%. Republicans dropped off here 4,800. Dems even more than that, 7,800. GOP advantage 154,900. That's up from where it was the end of 24 and back in 2020. Dems actually had the advantage here of 8,500. So this state, like a bunch of others, was already voting red on a presidential level for a long time, but the party registration data finally caught up with those results at the end of 2020. About South Dakota, we've got Trump winning it by 29.2, GOP up 412, Dems went down 255, Republican advantage 174,000, and that's clearly up from November of 2020 where it was up almost 119,000. Next, it's a blue state. It's Oregon. Harris won it by 14.3. Republicans dropped off 638. Dems went down 1,800. Other is up 2,900. Dem advantage here is significant. It's 265,000. That's around 10,000 lower than the book closing of 24, where they were up 275K. We're going to keep zipping along here. We've got Maryland. Harris won it by a massive margin, 28.5. Republicans down here, 1,200. Dems down over 6,600. It's a gigantic landslide here for the Dem advantage, over 1.2 million. That's just very slightly lower than what it was on election day of 24. And it's only a little bit lower than election day of 2020, where it was over 1.246 million. And the next state is Maine. Harris winning it by just under 7%. These changes are since January, but the Republicans went up 899, Dems went down 64, other is up 3,200. It's a Dem advantage here of 45,800, very slightly less than election day of 24, where they were up 46,796. Election day of 2020, they were up 83,152. And the last state is going to be Kansas. We've got Trump winning it by 16.09%. Here, the Republicans went up 850, the Dems went down 953. Other is up 384. Republican advantage 402,000. That is up from November of 24, where the Republicans were up 391,762. And back in November of 2020, the advantage for them was 360,000. This is a state that seems like it could be moving a little bit bluer. However, if you just go by the party registration data, this state, along with almost every other state in this video, it's again clear movement, just like we've seen in previous months toward the Republicans. I always say take it a little bit with a grain of salt. You never know how people are actually going to vote. But as we've seen month after month after month, almost every state shows a net gain of Republican voters. This time in a lot of states, both parties have lost a lot of voters as well, but usually the Democrats have lost significantly more. So it's all up to you how much weight you want to put on this data. I'd say don't put everything on it, but don't entirely dismiss it either. We'll see what happens in the future, but this is another look at some fascinating data here on the registration shifts for the month of March. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about any of the data in any of these states? Are you surprised to see the Republicans gaining across almost every state every time I do these videos? Or do you think there could be more to it and there's actually some positive underlying signals here for the Dems? Let me know what stands out the most down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.